Hello and a very warm welcome. It's 9 p.m. IST and we are coming to you live from the WION headquarters in Noida, India. I am Molly Gambhir. You are watching GRAVITAS. Let's get started. The wife of Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has made a shocking allegation. Sara Netanyahu has said that the Israel army is plotting a coup against the Israeli Prime Minister. On GRAVITAS tonight, we join the dots for you and get you the bigger picture and the implications of what she has said. That's our top story tonight. And here's what else is lined up for you on the show. We get you the latest from the battleground in Ukraine, where Russia has reportedly dropped a mega bomb. What is this bomb? How dangerous is it? We tell you all that you need to know. We also get you the latest from Kenya, where the president has withdrawn the controversial finance bill that triggered massive violent protests on the ground. But will that really quell the anger? Can coffee help counter the health risks of a sedentary lifestyle? We tell you what a new study says. Whether or not you are a coffee lover, you do not want to miss this story. All this and more coming up tonight. Is the Israeli army planning a coup against Benjamin Netanyahu? It is a startling allegation and absolutely unprecedented in the history of Israel, a country that has been at war since its birth. War is led by generals, but in a democracy, generals are led by elected leaders. This has been true of Israel. So why has Sara Netanyahu, no less a person than the wife of the Prime Minister Netanyahu, made such a shocking allegation? What is the truth? Is she reacting to a situation where Israel's generals are telling Netanyahu some harsh truths about how the war against Hamas and Hezbollah is going? Is Netanyahu reacting so dangerously because he and his wife do not want to hear the truth from their generals? Have Israeli generals had enough of the Israeli Prime Minister? Do they now believe that Prime Minister Netanyahu is placing his personal interest above that of his country's interest?
לשנות את הגישה הצבועה והעוינת של האיחוד האירופי.
After all, it's no secret now that the Israeli military and Netanyahu do not see eye to eye. In fact, last week, an IDF spokesman admitted that Israel had failed in the Gaza war objectives. To observers, this seemed to be an unbelievable admission in the midst of a conflict that has taken a terrible toll on innocent lives. But was the IDF spokesman essentially questioning Netanyahu's stated war goals? You see, the accusation by Sara Netanyahu has taken the drama to a whole different level, with her accusation that top army officials are trying to orchestrate a coup against her husband. You heard that right, a coup in Israel. The accusations were made last week during a private meeting between the wife of the Israeli Prime Minister and the families of the hostages. During the meeting, Sara Netanyahu, the wife of Benjamin Netanyahu, said, and I'm quoting, "Israeli forces are seeking to stage a military coup against my husband." And when interrupted by the people in the meeting that she should not claim distrust towards the Israeli military, Sara clarified, saying that her distrust applies only to senior army figures and not the army as a whole. And she went on to insist more than once that the Israeli army top brass wants to stage a coup. But Netanyahu's wife is not the only family member who has accused the military leaders. Earlier this month itself, her son, Yair Netanyahu, made similar accusations. On the 17th of June, Yair accused the military and the Shin Bet security service of betrayal during the October 7 Hamas attack last year. In a post on the platform X, he wrote, and I'm quoting, "What are they trying to hide? If there was no betrayal, then why are they afraid of external and independent parties investigating what happened? Why did the army and intelligence chiefs keep claiming that Hamas was deterred? Where was the Air Force on October 7th? Let us keep the validity of such questions to one side. Why are the wife and the son of the Prime Minister interfering with such sensitive political matters? This is appalling and unbelievable in a democracy, and Israel is a robust democracy with a government that has always been accountable to the Israeli people. There is increasing evidence, in fact, that Netanyahu and his family are losing their balance as the Prime Minister is being asked questions about accountability. In recent months, many Israeli military, security and political leaders have taken responsibility for the failure that led to the Hamas attack. But Netanyahu has refused to accept any responsibility for the attack, although it happened when he was the Prime Minister. And the most important lapse, by the way, is the fact admitted by the establishment that intelligence reports about an impending Hamas attack had reached the government by mid-September, but no one did anything. Who was responsible for such dereliction of duty? Recent developments showing that tensions between Netanyahu and the military are coming to a boil. It confirms that there is growing concern about Netanyahu in the highest quarters of the military. As if these problems are not enough, an old contradiction has come to the surface, thanks to a judgment of the Israel Supreme Court. It is about the ultra-Orthodox sect called Haredi and their right to avoid conscription in pursuit of their religious duties. More recently, the military has been frustrated by Netanyahu's fight to maintain exemption from service, a privilege enjoyed by ultra-Orthodox Jews in Israel, especially at a time when Israeli forces are stretched thin due to war. But the most public statement came when IDF spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari admitted that Hamas cannot be destroyed. And that's a big admission coming out of Israel. Destroying Hamas, remember, has been one of the only two key goals of Israel as stated by Benjamin Netanyahu. But Hagari's admission that it cannot be done reflects fears among the military leaders that Netanyahu's failure to articulate a vision for a post-war Gaza could squander the gains made against Hamas. You see, the most important concern for Israeli military is ensuring that hard-won tactical gains against Hamas do not go to waste. And for that, Admiral Hagari has said that there has to be an alternative to Hamas in Gaza. But as per reports from Western media, Israeli generals have accused Netanyahu of blocking any plans for governing Gaza after conflict in the off-the-record briefings. Netanyahu has also been accused of preventing the creation of an alternative governing force or authority for Gaza. In fact, in recent days, the IDF has had to redeploy forces to northern Gaza, which it had previously claimed to have cleared. Following the resignation of two key ministers in his war cabinet, Netanyahu was forced to dissolve the cabinet. Israeli citizens are also demanding Netanyahu's resignation. And as per some polls, if an election were held now, Netanyahu would lose. Most Israelis, in fact, are in favor of holding an early election. As you can see, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is facing challenges on multiple fronts. He is involved in disputes with the Israeli military, members of his own party, leaders of other parties in his governing coalition, and with the Biden administration in the US. What does all of this tell you? It tells us that there is a significant lack of trust. It suggests basically that the military no longer believes in the political leadership, and that's a big problem. Meanwhile, Palestinians in Gaza continue to suffer. The death toll in Gaza has risen to 37,658. Thousands of tons of humanitarian aid stranded on the Gaza side of the main Israeli border crossing. Israeli military leaders are worried about shouldering the burden. Some want to wind down the campaign in Gaza. They want to focus on the rising tensions with Hezbollah, the Lebanon-based armed group, remember, that is far more dangerous than Hamas. But even before the war in Gaza, Netanyahu's government and the military did not always see eye to eye. Remember, just last year, thousands of Israeli military reservists announced that they would not volunteer for duty to protest against Netanyahu's plan to weaken the country's judiciary. The burn marks from that event are still evident. The question is the situation shaping up into some kind of military rebellion against Netanyahu? Will the Israeli military really declare a coup against Netanyahu? Has Russia dropped a mega bomb on Ukraine? What are we talking about? The FAB 3000, FAB 3000, a glide bomb that Moscow has reportedly debuted on the battlefield in Ukraine. What does this mean for the war and the situation on the ground? And what should one make of Russia's mega bomb move? Let's dig deeper. First, the basics. Reports have emerged that Russian forces dropped a powerful bomb called the FAB 3000 on a Ukrainian Special Operations Unit in Lipsy, a village in Ukraine's Kharkiv region. Russian planes also launched glide bombs towards Vovchansk, another area in Kharkiv. These are the visuals that the Russian military bloggers have been sharing on social media, showing a powerful explosion. The structure in the video has been severely damaged in the explosion. What is the FAB 3000? And why are military experts worried about its use? Let me explain this to you. The FAB 3000 is a powerful glide bomb. The design is inspired from the Soviet-era war munition. It weighs over 6,600 pounds and carries over 1.3 tons of explosives. That's not all. It is twice the size of the FAB 1500 bomb, which the Russian forces have used in the past. Its blast radius is massive. Why do I say that? The explosion on the 20th of June had reportedly caused direct damage from the blast as far as 200 yards. Other lethal fragments of the bomb went as far as 1,200 yards. That is more than half a mile of intense damage and destruction to life and to infrastructure. Analysts and military experts have been talking about the highly destructive capabilities of the FAB 3000. With the damage that it can cause, no wonder even experts in the West are concerned. This is a report from the Institute for the Study of War. It is a Washington-based think tank that has talked about Russia's latest weapon and its high potential for destruction. Have a look at what this report says. Should Russian forces be able to launch massive barrages of FAB 3000s or even heavier gilded glide bombs, they will be able to cause even more widespread damage to Ukrainian frontline positions and critical infrastructure, quote unquote. Ukraine should be worried as well. But first, it needs to be able to identify what really happened as a result of last week's attack. Ukrainian military forces are still investigating the explosion. The top brass remains silent on what really happened. Was a FAB 3000 bomb dropped on their military facility? How much damage did it really cause? All questions that Ukraine remains tight-lipped on. In fact, Ukraine's Air Force spokesperson, Major Ilya Yevlash, has said that the investigation is yet to be concluded on the blast site. The attack is still under probe, basically. Russian experts, on the other hand, have gone on the offense. Following the use of the deadly FAB 3000, defense analysts in the country want their troops to scale up the attack. They want Russian soldiers to use more of these lethal explosives to be used. It only seems fair, after all, that with the West trying to pump up Ukraine's war chest, Russia will intensify its attacks and scale up the offense on the battlefield. But if the escalation continues along these lines, Ukraine will have a lot to worry about in terms of its defense, its troops, and the munition it has in its war chest to fight back. Not just that, with Russia bringing in bigger bombs, what does all of this mean for the future of the war and the situation on the ground, and any hope for the peace negotiations between the two sides? What do Emmanuel Macron, Rishi Sunak and Justin Trudeau have in common? They are all thinking in one way or the other. They are all facing wrath and contempt, defeat and oblivion. It is a dangerous mix and certainly not a great place to be in. That Rishi Sunak is sinking has been the story for a while now. In fact, things have only been getting worse for him. What about Justin Trudeau? Things are looking increasingly bleak for him with each passing day, to the extent that now he has had to digest the embarrassment of a shock defeat in a Liberal stronghold. It's a major setback that has left the Canadian Prime Minister red-faced. Not just that, what's worse for him is that this could mean a potential Liberal wipeout at a future general election. And what's even more embarrassing for Trudeau to deal with is that he had travelled himself to the seat to try and ramp up support. But to no avail, it seems. And this is a seat that the Liberal Party has held since 1993, by the way, 1993. So this defeat must have hurt really bad. The Conservatives, you see, are making the most of the moment. In fact, they have called for a snap general election. Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative leader, said that they had inflicted a shocking upset on the Canadian leader. He said Trudeau cannot go on like this. Well, he does have a point here. After all, Trudeau's popularity has tanked, and how? There are a host of reasons for that. People are simply fed up, it seems. The high cost of living, along with the dipping living standards and the lack of affordable housing, have led to frustration levels rising on the ground. And what about Emmanuel Macron? He seems to be in panic mode. Elections are looming. We've told you earlier about the rise of the far right in France, and Macron is desperate. So much so that he has warned of a civil war in France. Yes, a civil war. Why? According to him, both the far-right National Rally Party and the left-wing New Popular Front coalition, that are front runners in the parliamentary election, by the way, risked bringing civil war to France. The thing is, he is in a tight spot, to say the least. His decision to call for an election has left him isolated and shocked the entire country. In a way, he has been written off by party insiders. Macron finds himself shunned by his own camp. His campaign rhetoric has left his party fuming. His move is being seen as an act of self-destruction. On the ground, the anger is palpable. Thousands of protesters across France have taken to the streets after Macron called for snap elections in the wake of his party's defeat at the hands of the far right in the recent European Parliament vote. For now, Trudeau, Sunak and Macron find themselves in the same boat, facing an extremely tough time at home, with no respite in sight.
I run a government.
Kenya is on the boil. Blood has been spilled on the streets of the East African country. The past 24 hours have been volatile, to say the least. What is it that caused the country to go up in flames like this? Why are thousands of Kenyans out there on the streets? At the center of this crisis are two words: finance bill. A controversial legislation which has now been withdrawn sent the civil society into a spiral, all because the government is trying to raise the tax burden on its people. Let me just get you up to speed with all the developments coming in from on the ground. Just a short while back, Kenya's President William Ruto addressed a press briefing. He said that the people have spoken, and because of that, he will not be signing the finance bill. Here's an excerpt from that speech.
I concede, and therefore I will not sign the 2024 finance bill, and it shall subsequently be withdrawn. I run a government, but I also lead people, and the people have spoken.
Ruto's address comes a day after protests in Kenya turned deadly. Here's what the country's capital, Nairobi, looked like on Tuesday. The streets witnessed absolute chaos. Thousands of demonstrators tried to storm into the Kenyan parliament in protest. A part of the building was set ablaze.
Seems like they have shot live bullets. Those are guys who have shot. Have made it into parliament. They have made it inside the parliament.
The anti-tax protests spread like wildfire in many other parts as well. Police opened fire on the people. Kenya witnessed absolute mayhem. 23 people have lost their lives in the clashes so far. Many more are injured. As the clashes became worse, eyewitnesses detailed horror stories of bodies lying lifeless on the streets. As hours passed by, the outcry only grew louder.
Between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. yesterday, the police reform working group recorded 23 deaths caused by the police fire, arrested over 53 others, and abducted over 17 more. In Githurai alone, police shot and killed at least 30 innocent people at night. At least 100 more are nursing gunshot wounds as we speak.
But what is the finance bill and why did it draw so much anger and criticism? Let me explain this. The Kenyan government drew the ire of the public after it planned to introduce a sales tax of 16% on bread, 25% duty on cooking oil. There was also a planned increase in the tax on financial transactions and 2.5% tax on vehicle ownership. These were dropped and amid the public outcry. The other charge was the eco-levy, a charge on products that contribute to e-waste and harm the environment. The taxes that were untouched by the government include the tax on specialized hospitals and higher import fees. The dissent among the Kenyans that began as online criticism a week ago became the president's worst nightmare yet since he assumed office 2 years ago. And now William Ruto has decided that the will of the people shall prevail. The leader said that he will now start a dialogue with the country's youth. One can only hope that dialogue can resolve the public parliament standoff and no more lives are lost. Shifting focus for now. With great power comes great responsibility. We've all heard that. But when it comes to China, a country that wields a great deal of power, great power does not come with any responsibility, it seems. On one hand, you have the country that the whole world is lauding for being the first to bring rocks and soil samples from the far side of the moon. On the other hand, is a lesser known fact. China's rockets are dumping cancer-causing, hazardous chemicals on its own people. Here's a story of these two extremes coming in from China. Take a look.
China is an undisputed space superpower. In the contemporary space race, the US is leading and China is fast catching up. Just yesterday, the Chinese space agency stunned the world. A Chinese robotic probe, Chang'e 6, brought back the first ever soil and rock samples from the moon's unexplored far side. When you look at the moon from the Earth, we always see only one side. That's the near side. So far, humanity has only explored the near side. China has landed twice on the far side, which is the moon's face that is never visible from the Earth. China's latest craft, Chang'e 6, used a probe, dug the moon's far side and collected samples. Yesterday, the Chinese capsule carrying nearly 200 kilograms of moon rocks and soil landed in China's Inner Mongolia region. This marked the completion of a high-profile 56-day-long mission. This is China's 6th robotic lunar exploration mission. China plans to launch at least 2 more robotic missions to further explore its celestial neighbor. China is not stopping here. By 2030, China wants to land their astronauts on the moon, something that only America has done so far. China also plans to build a space station around the moon. This comes at a time when the US wants to return its astronauts to the moon in what is called the Artemis program. With the potential of water ice reserves on the moon and possible existence of rare elements, moon is the most sought-after destination for space exploration. Now have a look at this recent video. This is the aftermath of a Chinese rocket launch. The burnt-up portion of the rocket is seen falling on a village in southwest China. The villagers are running away in panic. There are yellow-orange fumes all around. These are not ordinary fumes. These are toxic rocket fuels. Getting exposed to them can cause cancer or prove fatal to all life forms. Now, question is, would any responsible country do this? This rocket debris that fell on the village is from China's Long March 2C rocket launched this weekend from China's Sichuan province. Responsible nations select launch sites so that rocket debris only falls in the high seas or in uninhabited territory of their own. China, however, doesn't seem to bother about its own citizens' lives and welfare. China is a repeat offender. Most spacefaring nations make extra efforts to ensure that their rocket and satellite debris in space is safely disposed, or at least make attempts to do so. For example, India has been ensuring that its rocket stages and satellites splash down in the deep oceans. China, however, doesn't care. Chinese rocket debris that have re-entered the Earth have fallen across multiple nations. The debris has landed in India, in the Ivory Coast, Indonesia, Malaysia, and even over Texas in the US. Space debris is a common problem, and all spacefaring nations are held responsible all the time. But here's why China is at fault. China is often guilty of not sharing the exact information of where their massive rockets could end up falling. For China, with great power, it appears there comes no sense of responsibility.
And let's now shift our focus to the financial journey of WikiLeaks and its controversial founder, Julian Assange. From being blacklisted by major payment processors to amassing $244 million in Bitcoin donations, WikiLeaks has leveraged the power of cryptocurrency to fund its mission. Julian Assange became a household name in the year 2010 after publishing classified US documents, and this act triggered a years-long legal battle with the government. Facing financial restrictions from traditional payment processors, WikiLeaks turned to Bitcoin in the year 2010. At the time, Bitcoin was a fledgling digital currency with a price of just $0.06. This cryptocurrency, with its decentralized and anonymous nature, provided WikiLeaks with a way to continue receiving funds. Assange had claimed a 50,000% return on early Bitcoin investments. While the financial impact of Bitcoin on WikiLeaks' defense is difficult to quantify, it undoubtedly played a significant role in sustaining their operations throughout Assange's legal challenges. Julian Assange's legal battles and prolonged imprisonment have been financially draining, of course, with costs estimated at $520,000 for his release journey alone. Assange was recently, remember, freed after spending 5 years in a high-security British prison. Despite this, the Bitcoin fortune has provided significant support. Assange's advocacy for Bitcoin aligns with the cypherpunk movement, emphasizing privacy and decentralized control. This approach basically has enabled WikiLeaks to operate globally, bypassing traditional financial systems. The US government's crackdown inadvertently propelled WikiLeaks into the world of cryptocurrency, turning financial adversity into an opportunity. Bitcoin's mainstream adoption has surged, with prices reaching an all-time high in the year 2024. And this growth has been fueled by regulatory approvals, making cryptocurrency investments more accessible. WikiLeaks has capitalized on this momentum, with new Bitcoin donation methods like BTC Pay and Lightning Network ensuring continued financial support. As Assange returns to Australia, the resilient and decentralized nature of Bitcoin remains a powerful tool for funding his mission and resisting governmental pressures. World-renowned fashion designer Jean-Charles de Castelbajac has been specially chosen by the Archdiocese of Paris to craft the exquisite liturgical vestments for the grand reopening of the iconic Notre-Dame Cathedral. The 860-year-old cathedral has been undergoing a rapid reconstruction after it was ravaged by fire in the year 2019. The cathedral is now on track to reopen on the 8th of December, and with less than 6 months to go for that grand opening, the Paris Archdiocese is leaving no stone unturned. Naturally, they roped in the French designer, who is also known to his celebrity friends as JCDC. Priests, archbishops, bishops will wear vestments, which is the ceremonial robe created by that iconic designer. Clergymen will be donning designer-made vestments, a move that is sure to leave a 21st century mark on the cathedral's nearly 900-year-old history. The Castle designed priestly outfits featuring geometric patterns with sharp lines. There will be no embroidery on the new vestments. Instead, his designs will be printed onto the clothes. Like for sweatshirts, the designer said he wanted to rule out old school garments and create the clothing in tune with the aspirations of the new generation. The 74-year-old designer said he was inspired by the immense gold cross in the cathedral's choir. It was the part of the cathedral that was spared by the flames in 2019. Of course, the designer is no stranger to such big projects. Previously, he has designed vestments for World Youth Day in Paris. And his artistic talents have also been sought after by pop icons like Lady Gaga, Beyonce and Katy Perry. The vestments designed by the designer will not only grace the reopening of Notre-Dame, but also will be featured in significant celebrations like the ordination masses. The clergy will wear chasubles during a 6-month period of celebrations to mark the restoration of the monument. And after this period, Monsignor Laurent Ulrich, the Archbishop of Paris, will only don Castle designs for celebrations, including Easter as well as Christmas. Asked whether he feared criticism from the traditionalists, the designer said, "You have to dare. Who dares wins." The Paris diocese set out its plans to modernize the interior of the cathedral. Before the fire in 2019, the cathedral was often described as dark and dingy. Now it is said to have a brighter feel. The stonework has been cleaned. The interior has been modernized. There's also stained glass window work now in 6 chapels. The stained glass windows replace the 19th century ones that survived the fire. With all these modern changes, the Notre-Dame Cathedral is set for a grand opening in December. If you are someone who likes coffee and are a regular consumer, this might be good news for you. And if you lead a sedentary lifestyle, drinking a cup of coffee might have just saved your life. These are the latest suggestions made by a recent study. Researchers at the Suzhou University in China have made this claim. The study basically talks about the negative impact of a sedentary lifestyle, where you might be spending long hours sitting in your office chair or at home, lounging on your couch. You might already be aware that being inactive to such an extent has a negative health impact. But the recent research might come as relief for those caffeine consumers. The research basically says that health risks of a sedentary lifestyle can be mitigated if you regularly add a cup of coffee to your daily routine. Researchers examined over 10,000 people in the US. They found that consuming coffee every day can protect you against the adverse effects of sitting for 6 or more hours in a day. The study concludes that as compared to those who do not consume coffee, the coffee drinkers are 1.58 times less likely to die from all causes over a span of up to 13 years. This particular study does not talk about why coffee consumption prevents diseases and lowers the risk of all causes of mortality. But in the past, several researchers have explained the benefits that come with consuming coffee regularly. Prior research also proving how caffeine intake has lowered the risk of developing type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular diseases. But let me be clear here, there is still no data that verifies how much coffee consumption provides health benefits. The decision to drink coffee is a personal preference after all, and personal health is crucial to this decision. But for those who are seasoned coffee connoisseurs, it seems you have more research on your side. Let's now turn our attention to a silent bull run in the Pakistani stock market. There appear to be more legs to the bull run in Pakistani stocks, which could be an indication of better economic conditions. This bolsters the outlook for Asia's best performing market this year, beating Indian stocks at all-time highs. Take a look at our next report to find out more.